Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of MSP Business School. I'm joined, like always, with my partners in crime, Brian Doyle of CIO Toolbox, as well as my business partner, Rob Rogers from OSR Manage. This week we've got a very special guest. Her name is Teresa, and she is the founder and owner of RNT. They are based out of Oklahoma, and they are unbelievably advanced with their cybersecurity. She's got a very cool story to tell, and I'm actually really excited to have her on because it's somebody that I've talked to a few times in the past. And with that, Teresa, if you could just kind of give us a background, start from the beginning, because it's pretty cool. And then if you could tell us about RNT a little bit and just what you've got going on, we'd love to hear it.
Certainly. Thank you, Tim, and Rob and Brian. RNT Professional Services was started by Randy and Teresa Rule, my husband and I. We are both retired Marines, and in 2000, we saw a need for a more advanced cybersecurity professionals. A lot of this was brought on by the cyber terrorism that's going on, as well as the attacks on the World Trade Center. So we mapped out a plan to gain cybersecurity experience and certifications so that as we left the Marine Corps, we could continue the fight, if you will, to continue to develop cyber warriors and understand that cyberspace, we saw the need for people that knew how to work in a defensive and possibly offensive capacity in cyberspace. So we founded our business in Oklahoma because there's a lot of cybercrime that takes place in small and medium businesses. And like most states, small and medium businesses provide about 95% of the state's economy and workforce. And we wanted to make sure those organizations were protected. Ironically, most of our clients are not in the state of Oklahoma, but our expertise is founded there. It's that. The background on how we got started, I guess.
Oh, very cool. Thank you for your service. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know the Marines had a cybersecurity type of position. I thought they held guns and shot guns.
Well, no. If
it's
you
the
were
Marines, Teresa.
We say this is my rifle, this is my gun. Okay, I'm not going to go there.
Right.
But I was in logistics. I was not in cybersecurity because if you think about it, in the 1970s, who was in cybersecurity? I mean, and 80s and 90s, et cetera. My husband's an artillery officer. But the thing about Marines, and I'll say this to all Marines and most service members, is that if you see a need, you can learn how to do something new. We're all trainable.
Very true.
And I know that all of us have had to pivot in our careers and learn new tasks. So we deliberately set a map to learn cybersecurity.
Super.
That's awesome.
And we can also fire rifles and other things.
I was going to say, Rob, the reality is, even the grunts need the logistics, right? And need the ability to get some intelligence. So you got to have those groups.
That's right.
and now there's a cyber corps within the Marine Corps. I'm sure you knew that. Yeah. And all the other branches. So.
Yeah, cyber has taken a new life within both the military services and, of course, the private sector, which you are now happily helping move along. So terrific. So, I think I recall you've got a little something else coming up soon too, right?
Oh, we do. A few years ago, I was at a hackers conference and I listened to a presentation about a hacker who could do all kinds of things to harass small business owners. And I thought, oh, this isn't ethical. The very next week, I spent a full day with a bunch of lawyers. I'm still in therapy for that, but talking about cyber law. And I thought, what we need to do is get the technical guys and the legal people together so they can understand, because if we don't police our profession, who will? Big brother.
That's right.
So we had a cyber ethics conference. We had people from technology come, people from privacy, people from law, government, and now we have several different sectors that are represented. And so pretty exciting to see how that conversation has evolved.
That's great.
That's awesome. So, in terms of this conference, tell us a little bit more about, timelines for it. Is this something that anybody can attend? I'm sure our listeners, security is such a big topic today, and everybody's starved to learn more information and get better at it.
Well, this year we're really excited because we're introducing the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Accreditation Board. Boy, that's a mouthful. The CMMC.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of people that are going to be speaking to managed service providers to talk about how you can ensure your service is CMMC compliant, so that when your clients come and say, hey, you need to be level 3, you don't say, what's a level 3, right?
Yeah.
We have security architects coming to speak. We have people from the ISO world speaking about how to become ISO certified. A lot of different people from a lot of different places. Folks talking about critical infrastructure, financial technology. I just went blank. Data management, privacy. We have some people talking about the ethics of digital currency and how you can make sure you stay on the right side of the law on those types of things.
And when is this?
Oh, I'm sorry. It is the 16th, 17th, and 18th of February. It is completely virtual this year because nobody's gathering even for Thanksgiving dinner, it seems. But
yeah, right.
Yeah, 16th through the 18th. There is a website on it, RNT Cyber Ethics.com. And we welcome participants. Right now we have speakers from South Africa, Wellington, New Zealand, Oslo, Zurich, a lot of places in the United States. So a lot of different perspectives here.
That's awesome.
That's actually one of the things that I kind of found just really interesting about some of the conversations that we've had in the past is not only do you help these organizations, governments, countries in some instances with cybersecurity, but just your also the classes that you can get people certified, and you actually teach people, which I thought was, that alone is different, right?
Yes.
So can you just talk a little bit about that, because not everybody does that?
Sure. We also have a cyber academy, RNT Cyber Academy, where we can teach people in a lot of different areas, whether it's privacy, IT, cybersecurity, industrial control systems, and we have different tracks. At the end of the training, we not only teach you and mentor you, we also, if you don't pass your test the first time, you get to take it again on our dime. We're that confident in our ability to train people. That's not to say you should take the test the first time to get at your baseline. I mean, obviously, but we teach project management. We do all the CompTIA certifications, the EC Council, PMI, IAPP. We do some of the ISACA training and the GAIC. So if that means anything.
So Teresa, am I correct to assume this is a academy that's open to some of your peers as well, this MSPs and MSSPs that are looking to increase their security game? It's an option for them, as well as I'm assuming end user commercial businesses?
Absolutely, Brian. If you had someone that you hired that had a lot of great background but needed just a little to top off their credentials, they can spend a week in our care and we can train them on A+, or A+ is more than a week, Network Plus, Security Plus. We can also teach them ethical hacking, digital forensic investigation, things of that nature.
Beautiful. Now, are you expanding that to some of the regulatory needs? I know a big hot button in the community today is how to implement CMMC into their practices.
Oh my gosh, yes. While we are not exactly a CMMC trainer, we are licensed as a third-party assessor, and I am one of the less than 100 provisional assessors that have been trained. Beautiful. We are working with a lot of clients to make sure they understand what the 5 different levels are. Level 1 is baseline, level 5 is the highest level, and most companies and organizations are either 1 or 3. And we are working with MSPs. Right now, we're working with 5 in Oklahoma and Texas to help them understand how they need to tighten their hatches, if you will, so that they can be compliant.
Beautiful. And that probably segues us in a little bit to the major event that helped shape your business. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the last few years, yes, thanks for asking. We've been working with defense industrial-based clients, people that have contracts with the Department of Defense, whether it's the Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever branch of the service, but they all had to be compliant with federal cybersecurity mandates. And at the time, most of them could self-certify. Well, Brian, I know you know the problem with self-certifying is sometimes people
I'll put it this way. I ran a data center for about 10 years of my life. And the reality was take our SAS 70 and SSA 16 audits, right? So basically we had to define our controls. And then we had to measure to the controls we defined. But what wasn't qualified in that is, are my controls any good? Oh. I may be measuring garbage, but hey, as long as I say I'm compliant with the garbage I'm measuring, we're okay. I always found that
KPIs.
I always found that to be an interesting part of the self-certification process. It's like, okay, I'm attesting to, I'm doing what I say I'm doing here, but it might not be enough. Right.
Well, this whole environment of CMMC is really there to protect the data, the critical data that the United States Department of Defense needs to protect. And sometimes it's just federal contracting data. One of our clients had, for instance, a Porta-John business, and you're saying, how can you get cybersecurity with a Porta-John business? I know you're thinking it, Rob, you're just not saying it. But if there's an RFID tracker on the top of every one of those Porta-Johns and you deliver 150 of them to a landing zone for a training exercise, I guarantee you somebody knows the algorithm for how many people are going to be in that landing zone, right? In those Porta-Johns. Other things are, how do we protect that data? And the thing that excites me is that if you go back to why we started this business, and it's to keep our country safer, and it's also to protect the intellectual property of your clients, because if you have a patent and somebody from another nation state steals that data and can make a cheap knockoff and sell it, how does that undermine our nation's economy?
Yeah, there's so many different elements that tie into cyber today, or they're not. You use porta potties as an example, but it's a perfect example of data lives everywhere. And when you're in the chain of custody, sometimes that data is not as evident, right? You're really talking about now, the location of potentially generals, in our military because they're doing field operations, right? I'm sure there's some people out there that would be interested in that information. And when you really start looking at how all the different commercial units that support the military, government overall, how they interface with data in some way, shape, or form, and the fact it is pretty loosely regulated, in terms of actually governing what's going on out there. It's wild. I mean, it's still the wild west, really, right?
Yep.
I want to tell you a Wild West story since you brought that up. Has nothing to do with Department of Defense.
That's all right. Bring it on.
A few years ago, I got a call from a gentleman who got my business card, from someone who sat next to him on an airplane into Denver. Now, doesn't this already sound like a prank? Yes. And he calls and asks if I'm the lady that does cybersecurity. And then he goes on to say his cows have been hacked. And I'm like, I'm from Oklahoma. What kind of cows do you have? Turns out that the RFID tags on his cattle had been hacked. Now, I want to just back it up. He had about 1,200 head of cattle on an open range in Montana on BLM land, Bureau of Land Management land. There were 7 ranchers that had been doing this for about 20 years. Rancher number 8 flew a drone over all those critters and reset the RFID tags to belonging to rancher number 8.
Oh.
Now think about that. His cows weren't hacked, but the technology, that's used by the federal government to track critters had been hacked. And like you say, Brian, cyber's everywhere. Now, we were able to support him getting the digital information he needed, the forensics, if you will, to make sure that the person was met with his law enforcement people.
But you think about it, in that situation, if not caught, you almost just rendered those cattle useless to the first guy, right? It's like it's like your car. You can have the asset, but if you don't have the title, you can't sell it.
Just saying. I could tell you more stories like that, but I'm not going to because
we love stories. That's what makes it fun for us.
That's crazy. And so he just got 1,200 head of cattle just by flying a drone over and changing the.
More than 1,200 because there were 7 ranchers with about that many.
Oh, times 7?
Right.
Wow.
So
Sounds like a great example
That's
of
brilliant,
getting
and
too
it's
greedy
devious.
Yeah, seriously.
too greedy.
How do you even think of that?
God.
If you know,
I don't know. Like, do you tip your hat at the guy and be like, "Well done, sir"?
Yeah,
Like, that was
there's
very
a part of me
creative.
that's like,
As you're taking him to
all right,
jail,
you know
you're
what?
just like,
Yeah.
all right, not bad.
You know, it's the old
There's-
adage, though. You got greedy. If you stopped at one cattle rancher, you might still do it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, that's a crime, by the way. But did you know if
Oh,
you were
yeah, totally.
transporting any kind of animal across a state line, it has to have an RFID tag? So if you're taking your
Really?
horse
Am I
from
looking
New
at two
York
convicts right down there at the bottom of the screen
Yeah.
with your recent moves?
Yeah, I guess so.
no
well,
kidding, right?
I'm
Yeah.
talking not pets.
Livestock?
I'm talking
Yeah.
livestock.
Yeah.
So, and you know that data is important data. A lot of times it goes towards. And again, I'm not a rancher or cattle person, but I do understand that if you have certain breeds and certain pedigrees, you want to be able to protect those.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's got something to do too with you know, source and origin information, if disease spreads, if other issues occur, because you know, it's really, you know, it's amazing. Well, look at how things are moving here with COVID, right? You know, that English strain has made it over to the States, and you know, they anticipate by, I think it's the end of the month, it'll be in all 50 in some way, shape, or form. You know, it's just crazy.
Well, you know, you think about what COVID's done to change the way all of us live. I mean, we're here on a Zoom call. Before, did you guys all meet together, or was it always a Zoom call?
So we actually always did do it over Zoom, but we also started it after COVID.
Yeah, I think we started it after COVID.
Right, just after. So yeah.
And how many people have had to learn the hard way how to protect their own data, how to protect their home systems, how to not put the default password out there. I mean, how to change that. Oh, we're really excited because one of our speakers at our conference is going to talk about that, cybersecurity for everyone, how to make sure your kids are safe when they're using their home study on the internet. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
No, please. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, it's not really to do with managed service, but it is to do with how we as humans live together. You know, if I can't trust you, Brian, then I'm not going to share data with you.
Exactly. And we've had to reverse the whole process. I remember years ago writing a pandemic for the swine, when the swine flu was going to hit, we're doing a pandemic plan for a school system I was working with. And really it was the reverse, right? All the systems are still where they are, but the people are gone. And that's really what we're talking about here with COVID. Yeah. You know, now we've moved everybody out into this distributed architecture that everybody was wary about before, and data is living all over the place. I mean, just think of the simple act of termination now. It used to be, while we're terminating the guy in the meeting, IT would grab the PC off their desk, right?
Right.
Now you're talking about laptops that are out in the field, probably leveraging things like OneDrive. So secure documents are now synced to the endpoint. And how do we recover this data when nobody can see each other?
You know, OneDrive, you made me think of something with CMMC that may be very impactful in your world. And that is, there are a lot of organizations that use Microsoft Office 365. Yes.
Yes.
Did you? Yes.
One or two.
And one or two.
I've heard of it.
But the only version of Office 365 that's compliant with CMMC is the GCC High, which is government contract compliant. That's what the GCC stands for. And of course, there's a licensing premium for that, as you would guess. So if your clients are serving their clients with hosting Office 365, that's one thing they're going to need to know, is how to make that transition to the other version.
So if I'm a customer, and if I'm a customer and or an MSP, and I cater in any way, shape, or form to government concerns, does that technically mean, as a custodian in the chain of their data,
yes,
simply an email, I need to be on that version?
You also have to be, now you can segregate, like if you have 10 people working for you, and Tim is your guy that's dealing with your government clients, his email has to be that way, but Rob's doesn't.
So you can go into a kind of almost like a least privilege format, if you will.
Yes.
That makes
Yes.
sense.
So maybe, Teresa, not to put you on the spot here, but maybe you can tell us a couple things that MSPs probably aren't thinking about that they need to think about if they are, and let's face it, most MSPs have some government in their arsenal, if nothing else by accident, right? What does this mean to them in terms of things that they might not be thinking about that they need to now think about if they're really going to do this long term?
Thanks for asking that question. I would say, one, they need to have policies that are written, and for each client, they need to know how they're supporting that client. So if you have 10 clients, you can't just say, well, here's our MSP documents. It has to be per client. They need to be written per client. Even if it's almost copy and paste, so they need to be personalized for the client. That's one. And two, they need to understand the levels of security that need to be offered. For instance, they need to look at their cloud relationships. We did an audit not long ago, or an assessment, where somebody says, well, we use Barracuda to do everything. Well, then you have to look and see if your cloud provider is FedRAMP compliant. FedRAMP is one of those acronyms we use. And if they are, then you have to look at what level they are. So that's one thing. So, and the other is know how you're going to segregate your business, and know how you're going to, if you're providing architectural support for your client, they're going to need to have intrusion detection systems in place. They need to have ongoing vulnerability scans. They need to understand how access control is managed. And if you're providing service under the ID Technician 1 or Technician 2, that won't work. It has to be Tim or Rob, right?
No, I was even thinking here, Teresa, and this becomes very scary, I think, for many MSPs. It's such a jack of all trades, master of none environment in terms of everybody pitches in when something goes on. Mm-hmm. Segregation of duties is potentially a real challenge to some of those, early stage and growing MSPs, because really it's, hey, who's got cycles, right? That's kind of how the model's approached, unfortunately. So, wow, that's an interesting concern.
Well, the other thing would be patch management. Some of the people we audit only do patches annually. And if you think about how many Microsoft Tuesdays there are in a year, yeesh, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that's the internal corporate customers that take care of themselves, because any MSP that's only doing it annually right now hasn't earned their money in 15 years.
Yeah.
I would just say everyone should look in their own mirror in that world. So.
Yeah, well, I didn't say the shoemaker on their own shoes, though, right? Well, anyway, I think we're getting to about that time, guys. So, Tim, would you like to take us into the speed round?
Yeah. So, Teresa, it's just 5 quick questions, just a couple options on each one, and just give us the answer that first comes into your mind. First one is talk, text, or Teams?
Talk.
Talk. Okay. Music, movies, or TV?
Music.
Okay.
Most common answer.
Yeah, by far. What age do you want to retire?
Never.
Okay.
The other most popular answer, Teresa, you hit them all.
Mac or Windows?
Windows.
Windows, okay. If you could do anything else outside of tech, what would it be?
I would write.
No? Okay.
Very cool.
What kind of writing?
I think more like philosophy.
Awesome.
Yeah, okay.
Some
And then
deep thoughts.
I've got to ask, the Camel.
I was going to ask that question.
I need to know. I need to know this.
2 things about this Camel. A lot of people on our team are service members, and in this case, I hired a Marine named Vince, and I hired him on the 1st, and on the 2nd, sent him to Kuwait, and asked him to send me a proof of life. Did he get there safely? So he sent me this picture, and he said he's sending me a lady camel. Well, I don't know if you can tell, but how can you tell that's a lady camel, right? Without getting real specific. So I asked him how he knew, and he said, well, there's a sign right in front of it that says no trucks or ATVs. And he said no male of any species would stop and read a sign for directions. So it has to be a lady. So I keep that as a reminder that we're not afraid to go basically anywhere to do the work that needs to be done. And it reminds me of Vince.
Very cool.
It's beautiful.
That's cool.
That's a really cool
That's
story.
very cool. I'm glad I asked that.
I just have curtains in my background.
Yeah, I've got a mostly blank wall.
Mine's
So-
fake.
Okay, well, Teresa, we really appreciate you being here today. And for anyone that is looking to get in touch with Teresa, we will be including her LinkedIn profile with the podcast. And also just a shout out real quick that her Cyber Ethics Conference is going to be on February 16th through 18th. And if you want to get there, you can go to rntcyberethics.com. And you can see this podcast with mspbusinessschool.com anywhere you get your podcast. Teresa, is there any closing thoughts that you have before we break away today?
I just know that if we see anything, we need to say something. But no, thank you guys for all the work you do to keep our country safe.
And what I'll say to you too, Teresa, we want to help you promote. So we're going to drop that link into the bottom of the show notes as well. So you'll be able to see that whether you watch this YouTube or on our website. Certainly we took a look at some of the folks that you got coming, and I think it would be great for all those that have a concern in security to attend, and we can all stand to get better educated. So thank you for putting that on.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Hey, Teresa, how much is it for the conference?
Oh, 3 days, $50.
50.
That's with 50. Yes.
All right.
Whether you're coming for one session or, all 24.
Okay. All right.
And
Awesome.
but also,
We're basically
we
talking $2 a session. Come on, people.
we also give a certificate if you need it for any kind of continuing education units or PDUs, whatever they're called. It also counts for mandatory continuing legal education in
Really?
ethics. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
If you're
All
a
right.
lawyer. I don't know if any of you are, but
I don't think we get too many
Don't have to
lawyers
worry
checking
about
out
that.
what we're doing.
Background I have.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong group.
right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming on, Teresa.
Good seeing you, Teresa.
Right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.